Picture this, an October morning in the year 1307. Under the cover of dawn, King Philip IV of France gives a silent order, and within hours, the most powerful warrior monks in history are dragged from their beds, thrown into dungeons, and accused of unspeakable crimes. The Knights Templar, guardians of the Holy Grail and protectors of Christendom's greatest secrets, vanish almost overnight. But here's the mystery that still haunts us: their legendary treasures, their sacred knowledge, and the cryptic codes they left behind were never found. 7 centuries later, we're still asking, what happened to their secrets, and what if their coded messages are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be deciphered? From the moment they were founded in the 12th century, the Templars were more than just knights. They were architects of mystery. Rumors swirled about their hidden rituals, their vaults of forbidden knowledge, and a fortune so vast it could topple kingdoms. But when they fell, their secrets didn't die with them. Some say their cryptic symbols are carved into ancient chapels. Others whisper that maps to their lost treasures are encoded in medieval manuscripts. What if their greatest legacy isn't gold, but a puzzle meant for future generations to solve? Today, we're stepping into their shadowy world to uncover the truth behind the Templars' most guarded codes. We'll trace their symbols back to forgotten strongholds, decode the hidden meanings in their architecture, and follow the trail of clues they may have left behind. This isn't just a story about history. It's a detective story, a treasure hunt, and a journey into one of the greatest enigmas of the Middle Ages. By the end, you'll see why their secrets have captivated seekers for centuries, and why the answers might be closer than we think. The year was 1119, and the streets of Jerusalem teemed with danger. Pilgrims traveled for months across war-torn lands, only to face bandits, rival factions, and treacherous terrain in the holy city itself. It was in this chaos that a French knight named Hugues de Payens had a radical idea: a brotherhood of warrior monks who would not only devote themselves to God but also wield swords in his name. With 8 companions, he founded the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, later known as the Knights Templar. Unlike any order before them, they merged the discipline of medieval knights with the austerity of monks, swearing vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience while mastering the art of war. Their signature white mantles, emblazoned with a bold red cross, became a symbol of both piety and power. But what truly set them apart was their genius for adaptation. Pilgrims needed safe passage. The Templars secured roads and built fortresses. Travelers feared carrying wealth. They pioneered an early banking system: deposit gold in Paris, withdraw it in Jerusalem with only a coded letter as proof. Kings and popes took notice, showering them with land, titles, and privileges. Within decades, they amassed a network of castles, farms, and even their own fleet of ships. Yet their rise wasn't just about military might or financial savvy. The Templars operated like a medieval intelligence agency, gathering secrets from across the known world. Their commanderies weren't just barracks. They were libraries, workshops, and hubs for trade in everything from spices to ancient manuscripts. Some historians believe this thirst for knowledge led them to uncover artifacts, heresies, or even lost teachings that would later fuel rumors of their hidden treasures. By the time the order reached its peak, they weren't just protecting pilgrims, they were guarding mysteries. Their wealth wasn't measured just in gold, it was woven into the very fabric of medieval Europe. Imagine a pilgrim setting out from London to Jerusalem, terrified of highwaymen stealing his life savings. The Templars offered a solution: hand over your coins at their London preceptory, and they'd give you a coded letter, a medieval ATM slip. Arrive in the Holy Land, present that letter at another Templar stronghold, and walk away with the exact amount you deposited, minus a small fee. This was the birth of the letter of credit, a system so efficient it made the Templars the bankers of kings. But their financial genius came with a price. Kings borrowed heavily from them, including Philip IV of France. who owed them so much that some historians believe his persecution of the order was less about heresy and more about erasing his debts. The Templars didn't just store wealth, they moved it. Their network of castles and ships allowed them to transfer funds across borders faster than any government, giving them unparalleled influence. Then there are the legends, the whispers of treasure beyond imagination. Some claim they unearthed the lost riches of Solomon's temple during their early years in Jerusalem, perhaps even the Ark of the Covenant. Others insist they guarded the Holy Grail itself, not as a cup but as a secret bloodline or sacred knowledge. When their Paris treasury was raided in 1307, officials found nothing. Just empty vaults. Had the treasure been smuggled out in advance? The most tantalizing theory points to their fleet. On the eve of their arrests, Templar ships vanished from the French port of La Rochelle. No one knows where they went, but rumors persist. Some say the treasure was taken to Scotland, hidden beneath Rosslyn Chapel's intricate carvings. Others believe it lies in Portugal, where the order simply changed its name and continued operating. One thing's certain, their wealth, both real and legendary, was enough to make powerful men desperate enough to destroy them. What makes their financial system truly remarkable is how modern it was. They didn't just loan money, they audited their books, issued bonds, and even managed trusts for noble families. Their records were encrypted with complex symbols, a code within a ledger. Maybe that's the real treasure they left behind, not gold, but the blueprint for an economic system that would shape the world centuries later. And if that's true, then their greatest secret wasn't lost, it's all around us. Friday the 13th of October 1307, a date that would live in infamy. Before dawn broke across France, royal officers moved with chilling precision. Sealed orders from King Philip IV were opened simultaneously in towns and cities, revealing a command to arrest every Templar in the kingdom. The charges: heresy, blasphemy, and unspeakable rituals. But behind the king's pious outrage lay something far darker: greed, desperation, and a debt so massive it threatened to collapse his reign. The Templars never saw it coming. They were taken in their sleep, dragged from their beds without time to arm themselves or hide their records. Grand Master Jacques de Molay, the order's leader, was captured in Paris along with 60 of his brothers. The arrests weren't just swift, they were methodical. Philip had spent months plotting, even enlisting the Pope's reluctant support. His spies had infiltrated the order, gathering whispers of secret initiation rites and idol worship. Whether these rumors were true or fabricated hardly mattered. The king needed a scapegoat, and the Templars' wealth made them the perfect target. What followed was a masterclass in medieval propaganda. Under torture, confessed Templars described obscene acts: spitting on the cross, denying Christ, even worshipping a mysterious head called Baphomet. These confessions, extracted with hot irons and the rack, were broadcast across Europe to justify the king's actions. But historians still debate: were these tales of heresy real or just the desperate words of broken men? Some Templars later recanted, only to be burned as relapsed heretics. Others held their silence to the end, dying without revealing where their treasures or their secrets had gone. Philip's motivations weren't just financial. The Templars had become a state within a state, answerable only to the Pope. Their network of castles and banks made them untouchable, until the king realized he could exploit their one vulnerability: faith. By painting them as heretics, he turned their holiness into a liability. The Pope, initially hesitant, eventually bowed to pressure, dissolving the order in 1312. But even in death, the Templars outmaneuvered their enemies. Their assets vanished, their ships disappeared, and their archives packed with centuries of coded knowledge were never found. The massacre on Friday the 13th didn't just destroy an order, it birthed a legend. Within years, whispers spread that the Templars had foreseen their doom and smuggled their treasures to Scotland, Portugal, or even across the Atlantic. Some say their ghosts still walk the ruins of their commanderies, guarding secrets too dangerous for the medieval world. Others believed their true legacy wasn't gold, but a warning about the price of power and the lengths men will go to take it from you. The moment the Templars' arrests began, a shadow network flickered to life. While hundreds were captured, some knights slipped through the net, vanishing into the countryside or fleeing across borders with their secrets intact. Legends speak of Templar ships weighing anchor at La Rochelle under cover of darkness, their hulls laden with relics and documents too precious to abandon. Where they went next depends on who you ask. Some tales point to Scotland, where King Robert the Bruce, himself excommunicated, might have offered sanctuary. The intricate carvings of Rosslyn Chapel, built decades later, fuel this theory. Amidst its stone foliage, cryptic symbols mirror Templar iconography: a sword-wielding angel, a descending dove with an olive branch, even a supposed carving of maize, a plant unknown in Europe at the time. Could these be clues left by Templar architects who'd crossed the Atlantic before Columbus? Portugal offers another haven. There, King Denis refused to persecute the order, simply rebranding them as the Knights of Christ, a change in name only. Vasco da Gama and Henry the Navigator later sailed under their modified cross, leading some to speculate Templar maps guided Portugal's age of exploration. Then there's Switzerland, where some historians argue fleeing knights established the Alpine nation's famed banking secrecy, turning their financial expertise into a new kind of fortress. But the most enduring legend ties the Templars to the birth of Freemasonry. Underground networks in France supposedly kept their rituals alive, merging with medieval stonemason guilds over time. The Masonic square and compass mirror Templar geometric symbols, while their initiation rites testing loyalty through staged trials echo rumored Templar ceremonies. Even the Masonic obsession with Solomon's Temple feels like more than coincidence, yet proof remains elusive, wrapped in layers of oral tradition and deliberate secrecy. Perhaps the truth lies not in one story, but in fragments of all of them. Like a shattered stained glass window, each shard reflects a different color of the same light. Whether they became pirates charting unknown waters, architects encoding secrets in stone, or bankers forging a new world order, the Templars' greatest escape wasn't physical, it was their uncanny ability to transform. They didn't just survive persecution, they seeped into the cracks of history, becoming as much myth as men, and that may have been their final, most ingenious code of all. The Templars didn't just rely on swords and vaults to protect their secrets, they wove them into language itself. Among the shadows of their commanderies, they perfected the art of concealment, turning words into labyrinths only the initiated could navigate. One of their most enduring tools was the Atbash cipher, a code so ancient it predated the order itself. Picture this: each letter of the Hebrew alphabet flipped, Aleph becoming Tav, Bet becoming Shin, a mirror image of meaning. Simple, yet devastatingly effective. When applied to Latin or French, it transformed mundane messages into unreadable scripts. A letter about grain shipments might hide coordinates to a hidden treasury. A prayer could double as a map, but their genius didn't stop there. The Templars embedded clues in the very stones they laid. Take their chapels, like the enigmatic Temple Church in London. Its circular design echoes the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, a silent nod to their origins. Look closer, and the carvings tell a deeper story. A lamb holding a cross, a pair of riders sharing a single horse, the order's earliest symbol, even geometric patterns aligning with constellations. Were these decorative flourishes or a language in stone? Some researchers argue the angles of arches, the placement of windows, even the number of steps in a spiral staircase served as mnemonic devices, physical triggers to unlock hidden knowledge. Their secrecy wasn't paranoia, it was survival. As bankers to kings and keepers of heresies, they needed ways to communicate across borders without interception. A captured knight couldn't betray what he couldn't read. Their ciphers evolved with their enemies, shifting from simple letter substitutions to layered codes requiring keys only trusted brothers possessed. Rumors persist of a master cipher, perhaps based on the Kabbalah's tree of life or Euclid's geometry, used for their most sensitive records. When their libraries burned, did the flames consume the key to understanding their true legacy? Perhaps their boldest cipher wasn't ink or stone, but myth itself. Stories of Baphomet, the idol they allegedly worshipped, might have been distorted echoes of something far older, a coded reference to the Gnostic Sophia, or even the Islamic term for wisdom, Bahamut. In an age where heresy meant death, symbolism became their shield. A carving of two knights sharing a horse could signify poverty or hint at a deeper duality, a secret doctrine passed between initiates. The irony, their codes may have outlasted their treasures. Modern cryptographers still wrestle with unsolved Templar manuscripts, like the mysterious Voynich manuscript, whose botanical illustrations and unknown script have defied centuries of analysis. Others study the order's banking ledgers, searching for patterns in numbers that might reveal hidden transactions. Their greatest secret might not be gold or relics, but the realization that in a world of brute force, knowledge carefully concealed was the ultimate power. And that power still waits, whispering from crumbling parchments and rain-worn stones, for someone to crack the final cipher. On the battlefield, nothing struck fear into the hearts of enemies quite like the sight of the Beauseant, a stark black and white banner rippling against the smoke of war. To outsiders, it was simply the Templars' war flag, a practical marker amid chaos. But to the knights who followed it into battle, those contrasting colors held layers of meaning as deep as their vows. The name itself whispers of duality derived from the Old French for beautiful and holy, yet flown in the ugliest of human endeavors. Some historians argue it represented their spiritual mission, black for the sins of the world they fought, white for the purity they sought to defend. Others see a more esoteric message, a nod to the Zoroastrian concept of light battling darkness, or even the yin-yang balance of opposing forces. Then there's the battle cry that accompanied it, Beauseant. May God be with us. More than just a rallying shout, those words may have been a key. Medieval chronicles describe how the banner's sudden raising could shift an entire battle's momentum, suggesting it wasn't just a symbol but a signal. Imagine columns of knights waiting for that black and white cloth to tilt, left a coded command to flank or dip forward, signaling a charge. The flag's stark contrast made it readable even through dust and blood, turning fabric into a living cipher. But the most tantalizing theory comes from its geometric precision. The flag wasn't just randomly divided, it followed strict proportions, some say based on the golden ratio. To initiates, perhaps those dimensions pointed to something more, a hidden map. The upper white segment might chart a celestial path, aligning with certain stars above Templar strongholds, while the black below mirrored subterranean tunnels rumored to connect their commanderies. There's even speculation that surviving flags, when overlaid on medieval trade routes, reveal secret junctions where treasure or knowledge changed hands. Consider, too, how the banner's inversion played with perception. In the heat of combat, a flipped Beauseant could disorient enemies. Was the black now advancing or retreating? This visual trickery mirrors their broader use of misdirection, from encrypted ledgers to architecture that deflects attention from hidden chambers. The flag's very simplicity made it the perfect vessel for secrets. Who would suspect a child could draw of holding layers of meaning? Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson of the Beauseant. In a world where gold and relics could be stolen, their true wealth lay in symbols, an idea so bold it flew openly for centuries, daring observers to look deeper. Even today, that stark dichotomy challenges us. Were the Templars holy warriors or heretics, bankers or mystics? Their banner, like their legacy, refuses easy answers, standing as a testament to the power of contrast in a world that craves certainty. Among the tangled threads of Templar lore, few shine as brightly or as mysteriously as their link to the Holy Grail. Long before Arthurian legends captivated medieval Europe, whispers placed the cup of Christ's Last Supper in the hands of hidden guardians. But how did the Templars, a military order born 1,000 years after the crucifixion, become central to this myth? The answer may lie beneath their very feet, in the tunnels of Jerusalem's Temple Mount. When the order was founded in the 12th century, King Baldwin II granted them headquarters on the Mount's sacred grounds, a site believed to conceal the ruins of Solomon's temple. Chronicles suggest they spent years excavating not for treasure, they claimed, but to fortify their position. Yet within decades, Grail stories across Europe began weaving in curious details. Wolfram von Eschenbach's epic Parzival described the Grail guarded by a brotherhood of knights called the Templars, their fortress modeled on the Templars' own strongholds. Even stranger, he wrote the Grail wasn't a cup at all, but a stone fallen from heaven, a detail matching Gnostic and Jewish mystical traditions the Templars might have encountered in the Holy Land. Could their digs have unearthed something game-changing? Medieval texts hint at discoveries beneath the Mount, fragments of ancient scrolls, artifacts tied to the biblical ark, even a hidden spring with rumored healing properties. One persistent legend claims they found records of a bloodline descended from Jesus, an idea later echoed in Grail romances that spoke of a royal lineage. Others speculate they recovered remnants of the temple's rituals, blending them with esoteric Christian teachings to create a secret doctrine. What's undeniable is how Grail lore shifted after the Templars' rise. Earlier tales like Cration de Troyes' Percival depicted the Grail as a mystical but undefined object. Post-Templar versions, though, brimmed with military imagery, holy swords, warrior monks, and castles mirroring their commanderies. The Grail's symbolism deepened too, tied to themes of divine kingship and hidden knowledge. By the time the Order fell, the Grail had transformed from a relic into a metaphor for lost wisdom, exactly the kind of treasure the Templars were accused of hoarding. The most provocative clue lies in Portugal's Tomar castle, a former Templar stronghold. Its charola, a round chapel echoing Jerusalem's holy sites, hides startling artwork, a fresco of a knight kneeling before a shining vessel surrounded by arcane symbols. For scholars, this isn't just decoration, it's a visual cipher, suggesting the Templars didn't just guard Grail legends, they shaped them. Whether they possessed a physical artifact or something far more dangerous, knowledge that challenged medieval orthodoxy, their excavations may have unearthed the seeds of a story that still captivates us today. Perhaps the Grail was never an object to be found, but a mirror reflecting the Templars' own enigma. A vessel holding not wine, but the intoxicating idea that history's greatest truths are hidden in plain sight, waiting for those bold enough to dig deeper. In the quiet English countryside, an unassuming 18th century monument hides what might be the most tantalizing Templar cipher of them all. At Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, a stone bas-relief copies Nicholas Poussin's famous painting Et in Arcadia Ego, but with one glaring alteration. Beneath the scene of shepherds gathered around a tomb, someone carved the enigmatic letters DOUSVAVVM. For over 2 centuries, cryptographers, historians, and even codebreakers from Bletchley Park have tried and failed to crack it. But what if this isn't just a random puzzle? What if it's a breadcrumb left by the Templars pointing to a secret they guarded long after their dissolution? The connection starts with Poussin's original painting, created in the 1600s. At first glance, it depicts a pastoral scene, shepherds examining a weathered tomb inscribed with the Latin phrase Et in Arcadia Ego, even in Arcadia I am here. Traditionally interpreted as a memento mori, a reminder of death's inevitability, the painting took on new meaning when researchers noticed odd details. The shepherds' poses mirror Templar initiation rituals described in trial records. The tomb's geometry aligns with sacred measurements found in Templar chapels. Even the landscape resembles Rennes le Chateau, a French village steeped in Templar legends and later linked to the priory of Sion-Hoax. Then there's Poussin himself. The artist had patrons tied to underground esoteric circles, and letters from the 1700s suggest he may have visited Rennes Chateau to study an important secret. Could that secret have been Templar in origin? Some theorists believe the Shugborough inscription is a key, an anagram or cipher meant to decode Beauseant's visual clues. Attempts to solve it range from straightforward Latin abbreviations, Deus optime maxime, God, the greatest and best, to elaborate ciphers based on Templar numerology. One compelling theory ties the letters to the Atbash cipher, spelling out Eovasan, possibly a coded reference to the Gnostic divinity Ildebaoth, but the most explosive claim comes from researchers who argue the tomb in Beauseant's painting isn't allegorical, it's real. In the 1980s, an amateur archaeologist named Henry Lincoln used geometric analysis to pinpoint a location in the French countryside matching the painting's layout. Ground-penetrating radar later revealed underground chambers eerily similar to Templar crypts. Could the Shugborough cipher be coordinates or even instructions for uncovering a physical vault? Critics dismiss these theories as wishful thinking, pointing out that Beauseant lived centuries after the Templars' fall. Yet the order's influence persisted underground, merging with Renaissance esoteric traditions. The Anson family, who commissioned the Shugborough monument, had ties to Freemasonry, an organization some believe inherited Templar knowledge. Their choice to replicate Beauseant's scene with an added cipher suggests they knew something we don't. Whether the cipher leads to treasure, lost knowledge, or simply a clever hoax, its enduring mystery captures the Templars' genius for blending art and secrecy. Like the shepherds in Beauseant's painting, we're left staring at an inscription, wondering if the answer was always just out of frame. And perhaps that's the point, not to solve the puzzle, but to keep us searching. In 1885, a penniless priest named Bérenger Saunière arrived in the tiny French village of Rennes Chateau. His parish, the crumbling church of Mary Magdalene, was so poor its bell ropes had been sold for scrap. Yet within a decade, this obscure clergyman was spending like a king, restoring the church with bizarre decorations, building a lavish tower library called the Tour Magdala, and hosting sumptuous dinners for Parisian elites. The source of his sudden fortune, according to local gossip, he'd uncovered something explosive during renovations: ancient parchments hidden inside a hollow pillar, their contents so shocking they allegedly made him faint. The mystery deepens when you examine the church's strange iconography. Above the entrance, Saunière carved the Latin phrase Terribilis Iesti Locus Ist, "This place is terrible," a biblical quote referring to Bethel, where Jacob dreamed of a ladder to heaven. Inside, the Stations of the Cross twist traditional scenes with odd details: Roman soldiers wearing Scottish tartan, a child hiding under Mary's cloak in the crucifixion scene. Most striking is the devilish figure supporting the holy water stoup, its horns and grimace more at home in a Gothic horror tale than a house of worship. Was this merely Saunière's eccentricity, or clues pointing to a secret he'd uncovered? Enter the parchments. Though the originals vanished, copies later surfaced medieval-looking texts crammed with coded messages. One appeared to be a genealogy tracing the Merovingian bloodline, France's first royal dynasty, to Jesus Christ. Another contained a cipher that, when decoded, reportedly read, "To Dagobert Roman II, king, and to Sion belongs this treasure, and he is there dead." This explosive claim that a secret bloodline of Christ survived became the cornerstone of the Priory of Sion conspiracy, popularized in the 1980s. But here's where fact and fiction blur. Investigators later proved the parchments were clever forgeries, likely created by a local con artist named Pierre Plantard in the mid-20th century. Plantard spun an elaborate tale about the Priory of Sion, a secret society guarding the Jesus bloodline with members like Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton. The hoax gained traction when authors mixed it with genuine Templar lore, creating a modern myth that still clouds the real mystery. How did Saunière get his money? The truth may be less romantic but equally intriguing. Church records suggest he trafficked in masses, charging wealthy patrons for fake funeral services, a scandal that got him suspended. Others argue he found tangible treasure, perhaps linked to the Visigoths who once ruled the region. What's undeniable is how Rennes le Chateau became a magnet for seekers, its every stone scrutinized for Templar symbols or hidden maps. Today, the village's real legacy isn't buried gold, but the enduring power of a mystery to make us look deeper, even when the answers are right in front of us. Step inside a Templar church, and you're not just entering a place of worship, you're walking into a living cipher. Their signature round designs, like London's Temple Church, weren't just architectural flourishes. They were deliberate echoes of Jerusalem's Holy Sepulchre, a silent declaration of their sacred mission. But look beyond the shape. The real secrets lie in the details, the precise angles of the arches, the hidden faces in the stonework, even the way sunlight strikes certain carvings at solstice. Every element feels intentional, as if the builders were whispering secrets through mortar and chisel. Take the gargoyles, those grotesque figures leering from the eaves. While most medieval churches used them as drain spouts, the Templars' gargoyles often depicted fantastical hybrids, half-human, half-beast creatures not found in nature. Some scholars argue these weren't mere decorations but symbolic guardians, their twisted forms echoing esoteric texts about the fallen watchers from the Book of Enoch. Others see them as a warning, a visual representation of the spiritual battles the knights waged. Then there's the curious case of the Green Man, a face carved from foliage that pops up in Templar chapels across Europe. To the untrained eye, it's just medieval ornamentation, but foliate heads trace back to ancient pagan traditions symbolizing rebirth, an odd choice for an order sworn to Orthodox Christianity. Unless, of course, they knew something about the blending of traditions that others didn't. Geometry was their silent language. The Templars didn't just build chapels, they encoded them with sacred ratios. Measure the floor plans of their round churches, and you'll find recurring patterns based on the Pythagorean triangle or the Fibonacci sequence, mathematical concepts considered divine in the Middle Ages. Some researchers believe these proportions weren't arbitrary. When overlaid on star charts, key Templar sites align with constellations as they appeared during significant dates, like the spring equinox or the feast of John the Baptist. The Chapel of Montsons in France takes it further. Its floor tiles form a labyrinth whose path mirrors the movements of Venus in the night sky. Were these celestial blueprints meant to guide initiates, or did they serve as a kind of astrological clock, marking times for hidden rituals? Even the stains on the walls might hold meaning. At Tomar Castle in Portugal, sunlight filtering through a rose window casts a precise beam onto a specific stone during the summer solstice, a phenomenon replicated in multiple Templar sites. Some theorize these light shows were more than ceremonial. They could have functioned as a medieval projector, illuminating hidden symbols or maps painted on now faded plaster. The most tantalizing clue comes from Rosslyn Chapel in France, where a fresco depicts a knight receiving a scroll from a mysterious hooded figure. Behind them, a tower is drawn in perfect perspective, a technique not seen in European art for another 2 centuries. How did the Templars master advanced geometry centuries before the Renaissance? Unless they'd preserved lost knowledge from antiquity, secrets once housed in the library of Alexandria or Solomon's Temple. What makes their architecture so haunting is how it challenges our assumptions. The more you study their buildings, the more you realize nothing was accidental. A carving here, an alignment there, each element feels like a piece of a grander puzzle. Maybe their true treasure wasn't gold or relics, but a masterclass in how to hide truth in plain sight. After all, the safest place to store a secret isn't in a locked vault, but in something everyone sees but few truly understand. For centuries, history branded the Templars as heretics based on one damning factor: their forced confessions. But in 2001, a discovery in the Vatican's secret archives turned that narrative upside down. Hidden among crumbling parchments was the Chinon chart, a document lost for 700 years. Dated August 17, 1308, it recorded something explosive. Pope Clement V had secretly absolved the Templars of all charges. Not just pardoned them, declared their confessions null and void, extracted under torture by King Philip's henchmen. The implications are staggering. If the Pope himself cleared them, why did the order remain dissolved? And what does this say about the so-called heresy that justified their destruction? The parchment's contents read like a medieval legal thriller. Sent to the papal court in Chinon, France, 3 cardinals interrogated 72 imprisoned Templars, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay. Unlike Philip's torturers, they took testimony without threats, and what they heard contradicted everything the king had claimed. Knights renounced their forced confessions, swearing their rituals were devout, their faith unshaken. The cardinals granted them absolution, even restoring their right to receive sacraments. This wasn't just forgiveness, it was a full-throated exoneration. So why did Clement publicly condemn the order 3 years later? The answer lies in politics, not piety. Philip IV had backed Clement into a corner. By threatening to destabilize the church unless the Templars were destroyed, the king turned their trial into a power play between crown and clergy. The Chinon parchment proves Clement knew the charges were fabricated but sacrificed the order to avoid a schism. Worse, he ordered the document buried, letting history remember the Templars as blasphemers rather than admit the church bowed to a secular king. Modern scholars see the parchment as a smoking gun. Its rediscovery suggests the Templars' heretical rituals spitting on the cross, denying Christ might have been misrepresented initiation rites, designed to test loyalty through symbolic rebellion. Similar practices existed in other medieval orders without scandal. Even the infamous Baphomet idol could have been a misunderstood relic, perhaps a crystal skull or severed head rumored to hold prophetic powers. The Chinon record hints at a darker truth. Their real crime wasn't heresy but independence. A bank, an army, and a network outside royal control made them a threat no monarch could tolerate. Perhaps the parchment's most haunting revelation is how close the Templars came to survival. Had Clement stood firm, history might remember them as reformed knights rather than martyrs to greed. Instead, their absolution became one last secret, locked away until technology could resurrect it. The Chinon parchment doesn't just clear their names, it exposes how easily truth can be buried when power demands a convenient lie. And that lesson, 7 centuries later, feels more urgent than ever. When the Templars' trial transcripts surfaced in 1407, they painted a bizarre picture. Knights spitting on crosses, kissing each other obscenely, even worshipping a ghastly idol called Baphomet. These confessions, splashed across medieval Europe, cemented their reputation as devil-worshipping heretics. But here's the problem: every confession came under torture. Peel back the layers of propaganda, and a different story emerges, one where secretive rituals were twisted into something sinister to serve a king's agenda. Take the infamous Deny Christ initiation. According to some historians, this might have been a test of absolute obedience, a theatrical demand to see if recruits would resist even sacrilegious orders from superiors. Similar trials existed in other knightly orders, designed to weed out those who couldn't endure spiritual discomfort. What Philip's interrogators framed as heresy could have been a brutal loyalty exercise stripped of context. The spitting, one theory suggests, initiates spat near the cross, not on it, symbolizing rejection of worldly attachment. But under torture, nuance evaporated, leaving only damning sound bites. Then there's Baphomet. The Templars allegedly worshipped a bearded head that could make trees bloom and gold multiply. While this sounds like medieval fantasy, clues suggest a possible origin. Some scholars argue Baphomet was a garbled reference to Muhammad, reflecting Crusader-era paranoia about Islamic influence. Others trace it to the Gnostic Sophia, or even the relic of John the Baptist's head rumored to be held by Templars in Jerusalem. The most plausible explanation, a misidentified artifact, perhaps a reliquary containing a saint's skull, common in medieval worship. Stretched through torture and propaganda, it became a demonic centerpiece of their alleged heresy. Modern parallels reveal how easily rituals are misrepresented. Imagine explaining Freemason handshakes or college fraternity hazing to someone determined to see malice. The Templars' secrecy, meant to protect brotherhood, backfired catastrophically when outsiders filled the silence with their own narratives. Even their most controversial rite, the kiss on the base of the spine, might have been a misrecorded Latin phrase, osculum base spine vs. Osculum bas spine, a kiss on the banner's edge. The smoking gun. Trial records show Templars in different countries described Baphomet completely differently, some as a cat, others as a three-faced statue. If they'd truly worshipped a central idol, descriptions would align. The contradictions point to coerced confessions, not coordinated heresy. Perhaps the greatest irony is that the Templars' real secret wasn't blasphemy but banality. Their rituals, stripped of sensationalism, were likely just medieval team building designed to forge unbreakable bonds in an order where brothers died for each other daily. The true heresy wasn't in their ceremonies, but in how easily history conflates secrecy with sin. Among the world's most baffling puzzles, few taunt scholars like the Voynich manuscript, a 200-page book filled with alien plants, naked women bathing in emerald pools, and an undeciphered script that's resisted codebreakers for centuries. But what if this bizarre text isn't just a medieval hoax or an herbalist's ramblings? What if it's a Templar relic smuggled to safety as their world crumbled? The theory might sound like fringe fantasy, but the clues are stranger than fiction. Start with the manuscript's timeline. Carbon dated to the early 15th century, it appeared just decades after the Templars' dissolution, a period when their surviving members were scattering across Europe, possibly carrying encrypted knowledge. The book's sudden emergence in Prague, a hub for alchemists and esoteric scholars, aligns with rumors of Templar refugees finding sanctuary in Bohemia. Even its first confirmed owner, Emperor Rudolf II, was obsessed with occult secrets, allegedly paying 600 gold ducats for it, the equivalent of a royal ransom. Was he buying a curiosity or something far more valuable? Then there's the art. The Voynich's pages burst with otherworldly flora, some resembling plants from medieval herbals, others defying botany entirely. Templar apothecaries were renowned for their knowledge of exotic remedies, possibly learned from Middle Eastern texts or even pre-Christian traditions. One peculiar diagram shows a circular castle with 9 crenellated towers, a dead ringer for the Templar commandery of Tomar in Portugal. Another page depicts zodiac symbols intertwined with naked figures, mirroring descriptions of initiation rites from Templar trial records where astrological imagery allegedly played a role. The real smoking gun might lie in the script itself. Linguists have tried every cipher from Caesar's shifts to alien alphabets, yet the text remains stubbornly unreadable. But one tantalizing pattern emerges. Certain word repetitions match Templar accounting ledgers, where coded phrases disguised financial transactions. Argentine researcher Marcelo dos Santos noted that Voynich word lengths mirror Occitan, a Provençal dialect spoken by Templars in southern France. Could the manuscript be a hybrid language, blending Occitan with cipher layers only initiates could peel back? Not everyone's convinced. Critics point out the timeline's tight decades separate the order's fall from the manuscript's creation. But what if it's a copy? Templar survivors, stripped of their lands, might have transcribed vital knowledge into this portable format, disguising it as a herbal to avoid detection. The Voynich's nonsense plants could then be symbolic veiled references to alchemical processes or even a map to hidden troves. After all, the Templars didn't just hide gold, they buried truths that threatened the medieval world order. Perhaps the most chilling clue is on folio 78 recto, a constellation chart matching the night sky over southern France on the summer solstice of 1343, the year a Templar splinter group reportedly regrouped in the Pyrenees. Coincidence or a star map leading to something or someone left behind? Until someone cracks the code, the Voynich manuscript remains either history's most elaborate red herring or the Templars' final, glittering lore daring us to look deeper. On the night of October 12, 1307, just hours before Templars across France were dragged from their beds, a fleet of 18 ships slipped their moorings at La Rochelle under cover of fog. These weren't just cargo vessels, they were the Order's lifeline, faster and sturdier than anything in the King's Navy, their holds rumored to groan with chests of silver, sacred relics, and something far more dangerous, their archives. The disappearance of this fleet isn't just a historical footnote, it's the spark that ignites centuries of treasure hunts. The logistics alone are staggering. Moving that many ships unnoticed would have required precise coordination, suggesting the Templars had contingency plans for collapse long before Philip's trap snapped shut. Harbor records show they'd been quietly stockpiling provisions for weeks, extra canvas, barrels of fresh water, even repairs done under false pretenses. Most telling, their usual crews were replaced days earlier by hand-picked knights, men who'd sworn oaths of silence. Where they sailed next depends on who you ask. Portuguese chronicles claim some ships made for Lisbon, where King Denis offered sanctuary. Scottish legends speak of a midnight landing at Kilwinning, where Templar survivors allegedly fortified Robert the Bruce's army before Bannockburn. But the wildest theory points across the Atlantic, not to some mythical Templar colony, but to a very real enigma, Oak Island's so-called money pit. For over 2 centuries, treasure hunters have obsessed over this waterlogged shaft in Nova Scotia, with its layered platforms of oak logs and coconut fiber, a material not native to Canada. The earliest diggers in 1795 reportedly found peculiar markings on stone symbols resembling Templar mason marks. Then there's the flood tunnel system, an engineering feat that mirrors the Templars' hydraulic expertise at sites like Acre. Could the pit be a decoy designed to guard something deeper? Modern sonar scans reveal caverns beneath the island, while carbon dating places some wood fragments to the 14th century, right when the La Rochelle fleet vanished. But the maritime trail doesn't end there. Fishermen off the Brittany coast still whisper of ghost galleys seen on stormy nights, their sails emblazoned with faded red crosses. In 1953, divers exploring a shipwreck near Mahon discovered lead Templar seals amid the wreckage, the kind used to authenticate documents. Most chilling are the accounts from French fishermen in the 1920s who dredged up barnacle-encrusted chests near La Rochelle only to have authorities confiscate them overnight. Nothing was ever documented. Perhaps the fleet's true legacy isn't gold, but the pattern it left behind, a blueprint for disappearing. From the Azores to Newfoundland, every Templar maritime clue follows the same rules: plausible deniability, local allies, and layers of misdirection. That's why after 7 centuries we're still chasing shadows on the waves. The ships may be gone, but the tide still carries whispers of what they carried and why it was worth dying to protect. High in the Swiss Alps, far from the reach of kings and inquisitors, a new kind of fortress rose, one built not of stone, but of ledgers and silence. While the Templars' namesake castles fell across Europe, rumors persist that their most enduring stronghold wasn't a battlement at all, but something far more subtle: the origins of Switzerland's legendary banking secrecy. At first glance, the connection seems fanciful. How could a military order linked to Jerusalem's holy sites shape the financial heart of modern Europe? But follow the money trail and the pieces start to fit. After their dissolution, Templar survivors needed safe havens, places where wealth could be guarded without attracting royal attention. The Alpine valleys, with their patchwork of independent cantons and impenetrable geography, were perfect. Swiss mercenaries had fought alongside Templars in the Crusades, forging bonds of trust. By the 14th century, former knights reportedly resurfaced as moneylenders to the mountains, offering discreet financial services to local nobles. Their methods echoed Templar innovations, coded deposit slips, interest-bearing accounts, even early forms of numbered anonymity. The famous vaults of Geneva and Zurich didn't emerge from nothing, they evolved from medieval networks built on discretion. Look closer at Swiss banking's quirks and the parallels deepen. The Templars pioneered the concept of client confidentiality, refusing even to disclose depositors' identities to kings. Switzerland's banking law of 1934, which made it a crime to reveal account holders, feels like a modern echo of that ethos. Even the physical security mirrors Templar ingenuity. Just as their round churches defied conventional architecture, Swiss banks perfected labyrinthine underground vaults designed to baffle intruders. The most compelling evidence lies in the symbols. Early Swiss financial guilds adopted the red cross on white, strikingly similar to the Templar banner, as their emblem. Towns like Bern and Zurich still bear architectural oddities. Medieval cellars with vaulted ceilings identical to Templar treasuries, some bearing the order's telltale mason marks. In Schwyz, a 15th century ledger lists loans from the Brotherhood of the White Mantle, a name too specific to be coincidence. Not all historians are convinced. Critics argue Swiss banking grew organically from pastoral credit unions with no need for Templar intervention. But consider this, when the Vatican needed to move funds discreetly during World War II, they used Swiss channels, a curious choice for the church that once condemned the Templars. Maybe some secrets aren't about gold but about trust, and trust, as the Templars knew, is the one currency that never loses its value. At first glance, the Templar cross seems simple, a bold red pate emblazoned on white mantles. But look closer and its geometry reveals hidden depths. Unlike the symmetrical crosses of other orders, theirs flared outward with 8 distinct points, each angle precise enough to guide a mason's hand. Some scholars argue this wasn't just a badge of faith, it was a multidimensional cipher encoding everything from scripture to celestial navigation. Start with the 8 Beatitudes. Early Templar texts suggest each point represented one of Christ's teachings from the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, the meek, the peacemakers. Wearing this cross, a knight carried the gospel's heart into battle, his sword arm literally extending the virtues he swore to defend. But the layers don't stop there. Turn the cross 45 degrees, and the 8 points align with the compass rose, mirroring medieval wind charts used by sailors. For an order that commanded its own fleet, this could have been practical, a secret reminder of how to chart courses when stars were obscured. Compare it to the Maltese cross adopted later by the Knights Hospitaller, where their cross boasted 4 arrowhead-shaped arms symbolizing the cardinal virtues. The Templars' wider design hinted at something more esoteric. The space between its arms forms 4 perfect chalices, a subtle nod to the Grail legends they'd later be linked with. Even the red hue whispers of hidden meaning. While most assume it simply represented martyrdom, alchemical manuscripts from the period describe a reddening process called rubido, the final stage of spiritual transformation. Was this cross not just a symbol but a map of inner awakening? Then there's the cosmic theory. Medieval astrologers divided the sky into 8 lunar mansions, each governing destiny. Templar sites from Tomar to Temple Church align with these celestial divisions, their chapels oriented to catch solstice light through specific windows. The cross's 8 points might have served as a star compass, helping knights navigate both land and the metaphysical, heavenly Jerusalem they sought to embody. But perhaps the most startling clue lies in its proportions. Measure the angles between the cross's arms, and you'll find they match the octagonal dome of the rock, the very site where the Templars established their Jerusalem headquarters. This wasn't just architectural homage, it was a silent declaration that their order stood at the intersection of worlds, bridging earthly and divine power. What makes their cross timeless isn't its martial pride, but its mathematical poetry. A shape so simple it could be drawn in dirt by a squire, yet so profound it encoded the universe's blueprints. Other Crusader crosses proclaimed allegiance. The Templars whispered secrets, inviting those who dared to look closer. 7 centuries later, that invitation still stands. In 2003, Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code ignited a firestorm by claiming the Templars weren't just knights, they were guardians of a secret so explosive it could rewrite Christianity itself. According to the novel, their true mission was protecting a sacred bloodline, the descendants of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. The idea wasn't new, it had simmered in occult circles for decades, but Brown's thriller catapulted it into mainstream debate, welding the Templars to a modern conspiracy theory. But where did this audacious claim really come from? And why, of all medieval groups, did the Templars become the poster boys for holy bloodline theories? The story starts not in the Middle Ages, but in 1956 France, when a shadowy group called the Priory of Sion registered with authorities, claiming direct descent from the Templars and a mission to protect the Merovingian dynasty as Christ's true heirs. Their proof, a series of parchments later exposed as forgeries purporting to list grand masters like Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton. By the 1980s, books like Holy Blood, Holy Grail spun these fabrications into a tantalizing narrative. The Templars had discovered documents under Jerusalem's Temple Mount proving Jesus fathered a lineage with Mary Magdalene, and the Church spent centuries erasing the truth. Here's where history pushes back. The Templars' own trial records never mention bloodlines. Their alleged heresies centered on spitting on crosses and idol worship. Even their supposed connection to the Priory of Sion collapses under scrutiny. The group was the creation of a French conman named Pierre Plantard, who admitted under oath in 1993 that he'd fabricated everything to boost his own prestige. Yet the myth endures because it taps into deeper currents. The Templars were outsiders, warrior monks who answered only to the Pope, amassed untraceable wealth, and vanished overnight. Their very obscurity makes them the perfect blank canvas for projection. What's often overlooked is how the bloodline theory repackages older folklore. Medieval Grail romances already linked the Templars to hidden lineages not of Christ, but of King Arthur or the biblical tribe of Benjamin. By the Renaissance, esoteric groups like the Rosicrucians wove these threads into their own myths, claiming the Templars had preserved Gnostic gospels that portrayed Jesus as mortal. Brown's genius was repurposing these fragments into a 21st century thriller, where the Templars became the keepers of a feminist alternative to orthodoxy. The irony, the real Templars were fiercely orthodox, their rulebook demanding strict adherence to church doctrine. But as scholar Karen Rawls notes, conspiracy theories thrive on contradiction. The Templars' devout image makes their alleged secret even juicier. If these paragons of piety were hiding something, it must be earth-shattering. And so, a military order born to protect pilgrims became the unlikely protagonists of a postmodern mystery, their history rewritten by each generation's anxieties about power, secrecy, and who gets to control the narrative. Perhaps the most telling clue lies in Rennes Le Chateau's church, where the bloodline theory first took root. Among its odd carvings is a statue of the demon Asmodeus, legendary guardian of Solomon's treasure. Whether the Templars knew it or not, they've become the Asmodeus of our age, not the ones hiding the treasure, but the mythic guardians we blame for its elusiveness. After all, it's easier to imagine knights guarding cosmic secrets than to face the messy truth that history's greatest mysteries are often just mirrors, reflecting back what we're desperate to find. In the early 1700s, a document surfaced that would ignite centuries of controversy, the L'arminius Charter. Purportedly penned in 1324, it bore a staggering claim: the Knights Templar had never truly disbanded. Instead, their last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, had secretly passed leadership to a knight named Johannes Marcus L'arminius before his execution. The charter listed an unbroken line of successors, suggesting the order survived underground, its secrets intact. For believers, this was smoking gun proof of Templar continuity. For historians, it was an audacious hoax, one that would fuel countless neo-Templar revival movements while exposing how easily myth can be weaponized. The charter's red flags leap out under scrutiny. Its Latin is riddled with 16th-century idioms impossible for a medieval scribe. The parchment shows signs of artificial aging, and the ink contains compounds unavailable before the 1500s. Most damning, the signature attributed to Tomar, a man who spent his final years in a French dungeon, mysteriously resembles 18th-century calligraphy styles. Yet what makes the forgery fascinating isn't its flaws, but its brilliance. The unknown creator wove just enough truth into the lie to seduce seekers. References to real Templar strongholds like Cyprus and Portugal lent credibility, while vague allusions to the hidden treasure of our order played perfectly into existing legends. By the time the charter was exposed as a fabrication in the 1800s, it had already done its work. Secret societies like the rectified Scottish Rite and the Chevaliers de la Croix cited it as proof of their Templar lineage, crafting elaborate initiation rites around its imaginary Grand Masters. Even today, dozens of neo-Templar groups from the Ordo Supremus Militaris Templi Hierosolymatoni to the self-styled Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem trace their legitimacy back to this single forged parchment. The Larminius phenomenon reveals a deeper truth about history's gravitational pull. When institutions crumble, humans instinctively fill the void with narratives that promise continuity. The Templars' abrupt erasure left a wound the charter pretended to heal. Its power lies not in what it proves, but in what it symbolizes, the unshakable hope that no great order truly dies, only hides. And perhaps that's the most Templar legacy of all, not gold or relics, but the enduring allure of secrets waiting to be rediscovered. Today, dozens of organizations claim the mantle of the Knights Templar, each insisting they're the true heirs to that legendary brotherhood. The most prominent, the Ordo Supremus Militaris Templi Hierosolymatoni, or OSMTH, boasts chapters from Brazil to Sweden, complete with white mantles and red crosses. But how much connects these modern revivalists to the medieval warriors who once guarded the roads to Jerusalem? The answer lies somewhere between heartfelt homage and creative reinvention. Founded in the early 19th century, the OSMTH leans heavily into the Templars' chivalric ideals while leaving their martial past behind. Sword fights have given way to charity work. Their websites highlight hospital donations and refugee aid rather than battlefield prowess. Yet traces of the old mysticism linger. Initiates still swear oaths of poverty, chastity, and obedience, albeit with allowances for modern life. And their ceremonies incorporate medieval symbolism like the Beauseant banner and the double-headed knight effigy. Critics argue this is cosplay, but supporters counter that the Order's core mission, protecting the vulnerable, remains unchanged. Other groups take a different approach. The Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem, headquartered in Portugal, emphasizes its historical ties to King Denis, who sheltered fleeing Templars in the 14th century. They've even persuaded the Portuguese government to recognize them as the Order's legitimate successors, a claim most scholars dismiss. More controversially, fringe branches like the Tempelritterorden blend Templar iconography with far-right politics, twisting medieval symbols into modern ideological banners. Then there's the curious case of the Swedish Order of the Temple, which merged Templar law with Freemasonry in the 18th century. Their rituals borrow from both traditions, featuring coded handshakes and a fixation on Solomon's temple that would feel familiar to any medieval knight. Unlike the OSMTH, they openly embrace esoteric traditions, teaching that the original Templars guarded not just physical relics but alchemical secrets. What unites these disparate groups isn't bloodline or unbroken tradition, it's something far more powerful: the human craving for connection to something older than ourselves. Whether they're preserving handwritten rituals in leather-bound books or posting TikTok videos in faux medieval garb, modern Templars are proof that legends don't die. They evolve, adapt, and find new ways to whisper across the centuries, and perhaps that's the most authentic tribute possible, not slavishly reenacting the past, but reimagining its spirit for a world the original brothers could never have envisioned. Beneath the quiet town of Gizers in northern France, a web of tunnels snakes through the earth, some say leading to a vault where the Templars hid their most sacred treasures. The castle here, built in the 11th century, became a strategic stronghold for the Order. But it's not the fortress above ground that captures imaginations, it's what might lie beneath. Local legends tell of a secret chamber, its walls lined with gold, its altars holding relics so potent they could shake the foundations of faith. The stories took root in the 1960s when amateur archaeologist Roger Lamoy claimed to have uncovered an underground chapel beneath the castle's courtyard. Using old Templar manuscripts as his guide, he excavated a narrow shaft, eventually reaching a cavernous space filled with stone sarcophagi and what he described as a shimmering golden chest untouched for centuries. Authorities dismissed his find as fantasy, filling in the tunnel before proper investigation. Yet whispers persisted. Could this have been one of the last repositories of Templar wealth, hidden as the Order collapsed? Historical records add fuel to the fire. In the 13th century, Gizers was a key Templar administrative hub, where regional finances were managed and documents stored. When Philip IV ordered the arrests in 1307, Gizers' commander was among the first seized, but castle inventories from the time show discrepancies. Gold and silver listed in official logs simply vanished. Some believe the tunnels, originally dug to store perishables, were repurposed as emergency hiding places during the purge. The most compelling evidence lies in the architecture itself. Unlike typical medieval cellars, Gizers' underground passages form precise geometric patterns, intersecting at angles that mirror sacred Templar symbols. Carvings along the walls, a lamb holding a banner, a series of interlocking triangles match those found in verified Templar sites across Europe. Even more intriguing, ground-penetrating radar scans in 2012 revealed anomalies beneath the castle, hollow spaces too regular to be natural formations. Yet French cultural authorities have blocked further excavation, citing preservation concerns. Local lore offers tantalizing glimpses of what might be down there. One 16th century chronicle tells of a farmer who stumbled into a hidden crypt while plowing his field near the castle. Inside, he reportedly found stacked ingots stamped with Templar crosses only for the ground to collapse behind him as he fled. Another account describes a spectral guardian, a knight in white robes who appears near the castle moat on foggy nights, as if still standing watch over something buried. Skeptics argue that if Templars hid treasure at Gizers, it would have been found by now, but treasure hunters counter that the Order's genius lay in misdirection. Perhaps the real vault isn't beneath the castle at all, but somewhere along the network of tunnels rumored to stretch for miles, some leading to nearby churches, others dead ending as traps. Until someone unravels the full blueprint, Gizers remains a locked box, its secrets sealed in stone and shadow, and that may be exactly how the Templars intended it. Perched on a hilltop in central Portugal, the Convent of Christ at Tomar isn't just a medieval fortress, it's a puzzle box of Templar symbolism, built by knights who refused to vanish. When King Philip's purge began in 1307, Portugal's King Denis offered the Templars a lifeline. Rebrand them as the Order of Christ, let them keep their lands and quietly continue their work. The result, a sprawling complex where the Order's secrets weren't just preserved but etched into stone for those who knew how to look. Start with the Charola, the convent's eerie rotunda. From the outside, it resembles a typical Templar round church, echoing Jerusalem's Holy Sepulchre. Step inside and the real magic begins. 16 sides form its walls, a number sacred to Pythagoreans as the sum of 4 times 4, symbolizing cosmic harmony. The columns twist like strands of DNA centuries before science discovered the double helix, but the true marvel is the ceiling, a celestial map painted in gold, with stars positioned not as they appear in the night sky, but as they would be seen from somewhere else. Some researchers argue it mirrors the heavens above Jerusalem during the autumn equinox, locking the holy city's coordinates into architecture. Then there are the carvings. Among the expected saints and biblical scenes lurk stranger figures. A knight kneeling before a chalice that isn't the Holy Grail but a geometric shape resembling the flower of life. A serpent coiled around a staff, its scales forming Hebrew letters spelling Metatron, the name of an archangel in Kabbalistic mysticism. Most startling is the window framing the summer solstice sunrise. Its tracery casts a shadow that, at precisely 9 a.m., aligns with a hidden groove in the floor, pointing to a section of wall rumored to conceal a vault. The convent's later additions only deepen the mystery. When Prince Henry the Navigator took over the order in the 15th century, he commissioned the famous Window of the Chapter House, a masterpiece of Manueline style. At first glance, its seaweed and coral motifs celebrate Portugal's age of discovery. Look closer. The ropes and knots form perfect Templar crosses, while the sea monsters bear uncanny resemblance to descriptions of Baphomet from trial records. Was Henry, a man who sent ships to chart unknown waters, also preserving his order's esoteric legacy in plain sight? Local legends claim the convent hides more than symbols. Beneath the charola lies a network of cisterns, except some chambers show no signs of water stains. One tunnel, now sealed, allegedly led to the Nabao River, perfect for smuggling artifacts if danger came. In 1946, workmen repairing a wall uncovered a hollow space filled with ashes and a single intact parchment, its ink faded beyond reading. The Archbishop of Lisbon personally collected it. Its contents were never disclosed. What makes Tomar unique isn't just its preservation of Templar motifs, but their evolution. Here, the order's imagery didn't freeze in 1307, it grew, adapting maritime themes and Renaissance artistry while keeping its coded core. The convent stands as living proof that the Templars didn't just survive persecution. They transcended it, turning stone into a language that still speaks to those willing to listen. And if the whispers in Tomar's cloisters are true, some of their most guarded secrets remain tucked between the mortar lines, waiting for the right light, the right angle, the right moment to reveal themselves. The Knights Templar have long escaped the dusty pages of history to become pop culture icons, their imagery reshaped and repurposed in ways medieval monks could never have imagined. Take Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where the Templars, or at least their cinematic stand-ins, guard the Holy Grail in a cliffside temple straight out of a medieval fever dream. The film's version of the knights, immortal and clad in white, leans into the mystique of their supposed hidden knowledge, blending fact with pure Hollywood invention. But why does this blend work so well? Because the Templars' real-life ambiguity, were they holy warriors or heretics, makes them the perfect blank slate for storytelling. Then there's Assassin's Creed, which flips the script entirely. Here, the Templars aren't just secretive, they're shadowy puppet masters, pulling the strings of history from the Crusades to the modern era. The game's genius is taking the Order's real-world financial and political influence and dialing it up to mythic proportions. Their Red Cross isn't just a symbol, it's a brand for a conspiracy stretching back centuries. This version taps into modern anxieties about power and control, turning medieval bankers into the ultimate villains. Even Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, despite its historical liberties, understood something crucial. The Templars are a storytelling shortcut for mystery. Their association with lost treasures, coded messages, and alternative Christian history makes them irresistible to audiences hungry for puzzles. Brown's Templars aren't warriors but archivists guarding explosive secrets under Paris's streets. It's a far cry from their actual role as battlefield monks, yet it feels plausible because their real history is already so shrouded in enigma. The deeper question is why their symbolism endures. Perhaps it's because the Templars represent the ultimate underdog story, noble ideals crushed by corrupt power, a narrative that never gets old. Or maybe it's their aesthetic. Those stark white mantles and crimson crosses are visual catnip for designers, instantly evoking ancient secrets and sacred missions. From heavy metal album covers to Netflix dramas, their iconography translates effortlessly across mediums, always carrying a whiff of the occult. Even when pop culture gets the details wrong, it often accidentally stumbles into truth. The Templars really were innovators ahead of their time in finance, cryptography, and global networking. Modern retellings amplify these traits, turning them into proto-hackers or feudal Illuminati. The irony, the real Templars might have approved. Their survival depended on blending in, adapting, and controlling their narrative skills as valuable today as they were in the 13th century. So the next time you see their cross on a movie poster or a game cover, remember, the Templars aren't just in our stories. They've become the story, rewritten by every generation to reflect its own fears and fascinations. Even centuries after their fall, the Templars refuse to surrender their secrets. Modern researchers still grapple with the same questions that haunted medieval inquisitors. Did these knights possess sacred relics like the Ark of the Covenant? Were their whispered rituals evidence of Gnostic heresy or something far more complex? The mysteries aren't just academic, they're the fuel for expeditions, high-tech scans of ancient sites, and even classified archival digs. Take the Ark theory. Medieval chronicles mention the Templars conducting extensive excavations beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount, where Jewish tradition holds the Ark was once hidden. Some argue they unearthed not the Ark itself, but blueprints, ancient descriptions of its construction that became the basis for their own reliquary designs. In 2010, archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar beneath Temple Mount detected anomalies consistent with hidden chambers, reigniting speculation. Skeptics counter that no first-hand Templar documents mention the Ark, but that absence might be the point. Wouldn't the ultimate treasure be the one most carefully concealed? Then there's the Gnostic puzzle. Trial records describe initiation rites where recruits denied Christ, a detail that aligns with Gnostic texts portraying the crucifixion as an illusion. Recent discoveries add nuance. A 13th-century ledger found in a Catalan monastery references Templar payments for the Books of the Sophia, likely Gnostic Gospels smuggled from Constantinople. Were they heretics or curators preserving suppressed wisdom? The Vatican's 2007 release of the Chinon Parchment complicates things further, revealing the Church knew their heresy charges were fabricated. If they weren't Gnostics, why did Renaissance occultists like John D. later claim Templar manuscripts inspired their own heterodox beliefs? Cutting-edge technology is rewriting the search. In 2019, multispectral imaging of a Templar-era prayer book in Prague revealed erased marginalia coordinates pointing to Cyprus, where the Order's last treasury supposedly fled. Last year, a team in Burgundy used LiDAR to map subterranean tunnels beneath a former commandery, uncovering a chamber lined with symbols matching descriptions of Baphomet from trial records. Inside, not a demonic idol, but a Roman-era bust of Cybele, an earth goddess worshipped by cults the early church condemned. Was this the idol misrepresented by torturers or proof of syncretic worship? The most tantalizing lead comes from an unexpected source: bank records. Meticulous analysis of Templar financial transactions by Cambridge economists in 2021 revealed cryptic payments to the Keepers of the Seal in remote alpine villages, continuing decades after the Order's dissolution. Were these pensions for retired brothers or proof of an enduring network? until someone deciphers the full scope of their legacy. The Templars' greatest secret may be how thoroughly they mastered the art of staying just out of history's grasp. 7 centuries after their fall, the Knights Templar still hold us captive, not with swords or treasure, but with something far more powerful: the irresistible allure of the unsolved. Their story transcends history, weaving together threads of faith, finance, and forbidden knowledge into a tapestry that refuses to be fully deciphered. What makes them timeless isn't just what we know, but what we suspect: the tantalizing gaps where imagination rushes in. They weren't merely knights or bankers. They became master storytellers without writing a single word, crafting a mystery where every answer sparks 3 new questions. Consider how their legacy thrives in our modern world. Across Europe, their ruined commanderies draw pilgrims of a different kind, not crusaders, but codebreakers and curiosity seekers wielding smartphones instead of swords. In Portugal's Tomar or London's Temple Church, you'll find visitors tracing the same carvings that once hid messages for initiated eyes. The Templars understood something profound. Secrets outlive empires when they're etched into stone, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who know how to look. But their true genius was making secrecy itself the treasure. Unlike fabled gold or lost relics, objects that can be found or forged, the idea of hidden knowledge is inexhaustible. Every generation projects its own obsessions onto their blank spaces. Alchemy for the Renaissance, cryptography for the Victorians, even quantum physics for today's theorists. The Templar's cross has become a Rorschach test, revealing more about our own fascinations than medieval reality, and that perhaps is their final and greatest cipher. For those hungry to dive deeper, the trail is everywhere if you know where to step. Start with the landscapes they shaped, the octagonal chapels echoing Jerusalem's holy sites, the vaulted cellars where whispers of hidden chambers still linger. Explore modern scholarship too, where researchers use spectral imaging and AI to tease new clues from faded parchments. And don't overlook the contradictions, like how a hyper-rational order of warrior monks became the patron saints of conspiracy theories. The truth isn't just in the archives, it's in the tension between what we can prove and what we feel must be true. Now we pass the quill to you. Have you stood in a Templar chapel and sensed something shifting in the shadows? Do you think their treasure was material or metaphysical, gold bars or groundbreaking ideas? The comments are your commandery. Share your theories, your sightings, even your wildest hunches, because the Templars' ultimate lesson wasn't about guarding secrets, it was about keeping curiosity alive across centuries. And as long as we keep questioning, their story is never truly over.